Freeman, Lonza Healing Global Color Director, and I'm here to share with you my guest, Sammy, today in a bleach and tone. So here's the best way of doing these types of applications. Number one, I prefer two types of lighteners. I like to use either our cream decolorizer or our powder decolorizer. Depending on the starting level will determine whether I choose one or the other, and also the integrity of the hair. She's got really, really great hair. I want to continue maintaining the integrity, but I want to take her really, really light. So on her hair, I prefer to use powder decolorizer. So we're going to use 30 grams of powder decolorizer with 60 grams of 20 volume. We do not recommend going above 20 volume on our powder decolorizer, just for two purposes. It's better for the hair, but most importantly, it's better for the scalp. The second thing we've added into the bowl too is our trauma treatment. I've done 5 grams of trauma treatment in my 30-gram formula. So the reason why we're using the trauma treatment is for two reasons. Number one, not just for the hair integrity here, but also most importantly, the hair integrity here. There's always a little bit of overlap whenever we're doing a decolorizing service. So we wanna make sure we maintain the health of this hair maximally. So by doing that, it's just gonna encourage additional insurance. So first and foremost, most important thing is back to the basics. We wanna make sure that we're taking fine sections, and we also want to make sure we're doing 4 subsections. The subsections are important for two reasons. Number one, it's going to give us proper saturation, but number two, we'll never get lost in the hair. The first things we've done is we've brushed out our hair really, really well. Now you have the option of doing a pre-treatment service like ultimate treatment. In a lot of circumstances when doing decolorizing services though, I recommend doing them afterwards. Just because you want to create less issues with the scalp, so the less we touch it, the better off we are. Okay, so now that we're gonna divide the hair into 4 sections, something to think about is make sure your clips are clean. We know how sometimes our clips get caught in other types of color, so I wanna make sure I'm either using brand new clips or clips that are clean. So it's very, very important that we're doing that. We've subdivided the sections into 4 quadrants. You'll notice we do it with a comb and not a clip. And the reason why we use a comb is because a tail comb is like a drawing tool. So when you use a clip, the problem is the clips are concave, so they create not super clean subsections. We wanna make sure those subsections are super, super clean. When you're working in larger sections, or if you're out of clips, here's another good tip. You can utilize a piece of foil as a clip. So taking a piece of foil, wrapping it around the base of the hair, and scrunching it on. This is gonna give a really, really good tight hold, but most importantly, it's a clean, tight hold. So again, if you're concerned about your clips, my suggestion is always make sure that your clips are clean or utilize a foil, because the foil will help. So now that I've done this, I've gone ahead, I'm going to start applying my application. I'm gonna start at the top of the head, and as I move in, I'm gonna go ahead and take the clips down. What I have mixed in my bowl is my powder decolorizer, 30 grams, with 60 grams of 20 volume. Starting at the top of the head, I'm gonna go ahead and apply the decolorizer all the way to the retouch area, slightly doing that overlap right at that area of growth and mid-length. It's important when doing decolorizing services that we're getting not only close to the scalp, we're getting the proper amount of saturation, and we're taking super fine sections. This is the one color service that you can see every error if you don't appropriately apply. Another tip too, when it comes to breakage, is the size of the brush you're using. I recommend using a short bristle brush because that short bristle brush is gonna stay within that outgrowth area, and you're not gonna do a super overlap on the previous section. So by using a tighter brush, you're able to stay in a tighter area. Another tip too is when you're doing applications, when you're doing the application, think about this too. When you press down and you push, you actually begin to overlap in another area. So by taking a fine section, keeping the hair slightly elevated, and painting the decolorizer on just to that tip of where you're starting to see that transition will also help tremendously. So ever we push down, we begin to overlap. The push down is where the overlap happens the worst. So I'm gonna go ahead and take the brush, I'm gonna take a fine section, and I'm gonna continue feathering it up the hair strand, making sure I'm properly saturated on the top and the bottom of the strand. And that is all happens based on the size of the section. So you can see how fine that section is. You should be able to see my glove almost straight through it. So by taking that fine section will also help. So keeping the hair slightly elevated, pressing down on the retouch and just going slightly past that section. I'm going to continue doing this throughout all 4 quadrants. Another great tip too to think about is having your guests pre-book their appointments every 4 to 5 weeks. The longer the outgrowth, the harder it is to retouch. So try to keep it within that 4 to 5 week time period, so that way the hair itself is even porosity at that retouch area. When the hair begins to get more outgrowth, you have to think about the amount of heat from the scalp affects the lift. So the further the hair is driven from the distance, the harder it is to lift. So remember, pre-booking is key when doing bleach and tones. So dealing with, let's say Sammy comes in, and let's say I haven't seen her in 8 to 12 weeks. And we have another additional 1 inch, 2 inches, 3 inches outgrowth, depending on how long it's been. Another suggestion could be is make sure whatever you apply at the retouch area could be like a 20 volume or even a 10 volume, but then through the mid shaft and ends is when you start to up your developers. By upping your developers, you're gonna be able to maintain that consistent lift that the heat is giving you, but now you're using the developer to make the rest of the drive. So amping up your developer by full will help you create that lift, but most importantly, consistency. So you can do it 1 or 2 ways. You have a virgin application, which would be applying it to the mid shaft first and then go back in at the retouch area, or lowering your developer at the retouch area and then applying to the mid shaft secondary with a higher developer. So here's a tip when you're dealing with hair that's really super damaged. You have 2 options or 2 roads to drive down. Number 1, you can put them into a highlight. Highlight's gonna be great because you're only gonna be touching about 30% of the hair versus 100% of the hair. Number 2, recommend them to get conditioning treatments until the hair is in better condition. I can tell you, stylist to stylist, the best thing you can do for a guest is to be honest. The worst thing you can do is provide them with a service that their hair can't handle. Now we're moving on to the quadrant on the left back. Here's a good tip. We recommend remixing your decolorizer for every single quadrant. This is gonna help with consistency and lift, and also you're gonna be using fresh products. You're gonna get maximum lift out of your product because it's brand new, versus a bowl that might have been sitting there for 20 minutes. So again, starting from the top of the section, painting down, making sure I'm not creating an extensive amount of overlap. I'm gliding my brush over those fine sections and not pushing the hair to the side. Here's a tip. When you're going back through your sectioning, once you're done going all the way down, go all the way back up to make sure you didn't miss anything. You can see the decolorizer starting to work, so if there's any areas of banding or maybe the product got a little bit drier, this is a good opportunity to go back through and make sure there's no mistakes being made. So now we've finished Sammy's application. We've taken fine section throughout the 4 quadrants using our powder decolorizer in 20 volume with trauma treatment. Remember a couple things that we did. We divided into 4 quadrants, we lifted the hair up to paint, that way the lack of overlap. We went back through the whole entire head to make sure that no spots were missed, and now we'll let her process at room temperature. Now that we've concluded Sammy's service, we let the powder decolorizer with 20 volume process for 45 minutes at room temperature. We rinsed it off and did an ultimate treatment using the moisture and protein booster for 10 minutes. After that, we did a glaze with 25 grams of 100 violet, 5 grams of 200 violet, 30 grams of translucent, and 60 grams of demi. We let that process at room temperature for 20 minutes. We rinsed, shampooed with silver brightening shampoo, and finished with conditioner. And this is the beautiful look we got.